Santana's guitar tone is as iconic, legendary, articulate, full of vibe as it is mysterious. So I searched far and wide in the confines of the internet to find this.
What did Pepperdello tell you?
I'm Jorge Lanza, sing now. We break it down, baby. I feel like everything that I said is just like an understatement trying to describe Carlos Santana's tone, and it's just like so hard to actually make it happen. Not because it's a very complex sound, although it really is, but mostly because of how recognizable it is. And I believe that when a tone is that recognizable,
it's very hard to actually nail it.
So in this video, I don't claim to actually have
cracked the code
for the Santana tone, but with a little bit of research, I think I came up with a pretty nice recreation that you can do at home in your Amplitube 5. And even though I know that his rig is like super complex and never changing, I'm still willing to take a really good stab at this great guitar tone. And I'm gonna start with a couple disclaimers. The first one is that I don't claim to be like the biggest Santana fan. I haven't been like listening to him for like the past 20 years and just like trying to experiment their tone and figure out what he's doing. And honestly, I'm not one to just go out and find out about Santana, you know what I mean? So let's not be naive to the fact that you are not gonna sound like Santana.
I'm not gonna sound like Santana.
But the guitar tone is gonna be close enough that if you were to like do it in like a tribute record or just for your simple enjoyment at home, I'm gonna give you a great starting point so that you can go experiment and figure out what is that tone missing. And hopefully with your experience, your knowledge about Santana's tone, you're gonna nail it way better than I can. So having said that,
let's go get the guitar.
PRS Custom 2408. Because I feel like there's nothing better than a PRS if you're trying to make Santana's tone. Just think about it. Something that is really recognizable about his tone is that super pokey mid-range, which we know he was chasing because he had a really great tone altogether with like his Gibsons or any guitar that he plays, he's gonna have like that same nice mid-rangey tone. But I feel like when he met Paul and their philosophies just merged together,
it was like a perfect marriage.
So let me plug this thing in. So grab some snacks or drinks, whatever you want, and let's just go do it. Okay, so here we are in Amplitube 5, and this is like the default preset, basically just like a Marshall on the edge of breakup kind of tone, like. Simple tone. But let's start with my preset, JO Studio. Just because I already chose the room that I want to be in and the microphones that I want to be using in that room. And you can go check this video right here if you want to recreate this preset, but go after this one. You don't want to miss this one right here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is change this amp. Because even though it's glorious, that is nothing like what we're looking for. Doing my research, I noticed that in a bunch of the concerts, he was using something very similar to a Mesa Boogie Mark II C+. So this is what we were going to be using right here. And this is what it sounds like right now. And yeah, it sounds nothing like what we're looking for, but that's why I have this.
So I know what I'm doing.
Let's start recreating this tone. According to this picture right here, I saw that he was doing this on this amp. He had his volume 1 and around 5.1, which is where we're at. Treble, he had it down around 5. Let's do 5 straight. His bass was on 7. And then his middle was on 7 too. His master 1 was on 7. And his lead drive was on 9.4 or somewhere around that. And then his master was turned down to 7.3. Which I don't think in our case is gonna matter too much. But regardless, we do whatever we have to. Then I was noticing in a bunch of other amplifiers that whenever he wasn't using too much treble,
he was using a lot of presence.
Basically only in the dumbbells he was using a lot of treble instead of presence, and I assumed that they had just different frequencies that they were boosting. But in this case, we're gonna go to the presence right here in the back, and we are gonna match his presence. He had it like around 7, which is what we have right here. And then the reverb, he had it on 4. And all these numbers and settings come from like a combination of videos that I watched, like the rig rundown with John Bollinger and Premier Guitar when he still had a mullet like 10 years ago, which was really great and informative. And then I hunt for a few other ones, and I was just like trying to figure out what kind of presets he was using. So let's keep going. The other thing that we need to make sure that it is on class A, always here. Then I would say let's just listen to where we are. Nothing like the tone still. And that's mostly because I know that he was using a little bit of a boost in some pedals.
And a secret ingredient
was a tube screamer. Even though that's kind of like debatable because he uses like different kind of overdrives and different amps to get the drive. I could see in his pedal board that he was using a tube screamer.
And I got the settings.
So let's check this. Let me get these settings in the tube screamer. He was using a tone of 4, drive of 6, and then he had a level of 3. So this would be the overdrive without a booster in the front. Let's hear it. Now we're starting to get a lot closer, but still it doesn't really have the touch. And something that I was like really surprised to learn from his guitar tech is that he was saying that he's never fully wide open in the volume in his guitar. So basically, I'm gonna try to be doing this next few steps, maybe like oscillating from 4 or 5 or 6 in the volume in my guitar. Let's hear how that works. So I'm gonna put this booster pedal right before our signal, and I'm gonna have a tone of like around 3, then my gain was 1.5, and level we're gonna leave it exactly as it is in unity gain, but we're gonna apply the boost. Alright, let's turn this on and see what's up. And I feel like that's still not where we want to be. So what are we learning? That just by copying the settings, we're not going to get a one-to-one comparison, but we're going to get closer. Hang on with me, my friend. Okay, so now that we did that and we have basically our gain structure done, I know that I'm going to have a few questions in the comment sections about my settings in my interface or my preamps. And I'm going to start by saying that it never changes, but to make it very easy for us to communicate since we're all in the environment of Amplitube, let's take this as a reference so that we all know where we are, okay? So if you see our input level right here on 0, I keep it on 0 all the time, and I recommend you do the same because that's just a very, very easy way that in your software, you can monitor what's happening in your audio interface even if you don't have meters. And I think that's very useful. Let's start by saying that this guitar has a couple sort of like PAF pickups that sound a little bit hotter maybe than a normal PAF, and the rating is gonna be this. So if you have something similar, you should be watching this kind of level when I'm bashing the guitar. Look at that. I would never play like that hard, but I feel like that's a really good way to know that if you're not any louder than that, all these things that we're gonna do today in Amplitube are gonna work for you too, the same way that they work for me. But since we said that I'm not gonna ever hit it that hard, let's see what would happen if I have my volume all the way up, but I play like something like more normal, like let's say what we're doing right now. And pay attention to the input. Pretty conservative gain, and I think that should give you a result that could be very, very easy to make different kinds of tones
without having to ever change your interface.
Let me know in the comment section if that explanation of gain structure works for you, and while you're there, remember to like, subscribe, and do all those cool little things that we like to do on YouTube so that we can stay in touch with each other. And let's enjoy this little bossa nova right here. Alright, let's go back. Okay, I just remembered that in all these videos that I saw, one of the key elements about Santana's tone is that he was saying that there's no delay. Except for maybe like a couple songs or like couple moments in songs. So since I forgot to turn mine off, let me turn it off right now. Really quick. But now let me go back to the amp because I need to tweak a few things now with my ear to get us closer to that Santana feel. Let's go. Okay, so I have in my notes that I had pulled this knob in the treble, and I had pulled the bass, and I have pulled the deep in the master, and then this happened. Way closer. I feel like it's still missing that mid-range bark. And when I was noticing during my research is that he never uses this EQ in this way. He had the 750 right smack down the middle. This was 5.1. This was 6.4. And these are all approximations, so take it with a grain of salt. You do whatever you feel like when you're doing your own tone and whatever sounds closer to Santana to you, in your equipment, to your ears. But let's keep going. And then this was basically whatever there is, or maybe a little bit less. And then this was around 6. Now let's hear what happened. That much closer. So I feel like what have we learned so far? The mid-range for a Santana tone is everything, and that mid-range starts with your guitar, continue with your boost pedal, then it goes to your overdrive pedal, which in this case is that tube screamer kind of overdrive, and I know he chooses that because of the mid-range. But now I'm gonna do something for me and for you in your studio. Let's get rid of that noise. Let's get right here to the pedal sections again, and let me put a little bit of a noise gate at the very beginning of everything. And I'm gonna use a conservative threshold of maybe, I don't know, 85, just because we have to be very mindful that we're not pushing the guitar all the way up. So let me turn it up to like a sensible level and see that if we're not losing too much. And right now in my guitar, I'm barely at like 5, okay? So I think this is starting to be a little bit more Santana. Now let's see what else we're missing. I know that there's a lot of you that know about tone, and I feel like one of the biggest things that right now I'm missing is that this is not the kind of like cabinet that we need. We need something that further accentuates that like mid-range bark. So let's go try to experiment and see what happens. Okay, we have right here this Mesa Boogie, right? So first thing I'm gonna do is like disconnect them so I can change and do whatever I want. And let's hear what's happening right here. Again, my guitar level like around 5. Let's just start with the Mesa because I know that the one that he's got on stage is like a combo. Let's try comparing both of these. I want to say that they're pretty similar, so let's just go to wherever the combos are, and I'm looking particularly for a 1x12. Let's go. This is the section that we're looking for. And okay, I see that there's the California Tweed, there's a Mark III, and there's a Mark IV. And then there's like the off-brand Amplitube versions that were not like certified by Mesa Boogie back in the day. So why don't we start trying the Mark III? It does have that mid-range that we're talking about. But it doesn't have like that open tone that the 4x12 seem to have, right? Why don't we try this Mark IV and see what happens? I feel like that's a lot closer to what we're looking for. But since I already tried this tone, let me show you something. If you go right here to the speakers, you can see that this Mesa Boogie certified is using this speaker called EV Darkness, whatever that means. But we can read right here that it's basically a proprietary speaker for Mesa Boogie amplifiers. And then let's go to our off-brand 1x12. In this case, I went for this one because it looks like it would be the cabinet that belongs to the 2C Plus, right? So let's hear it. See? All of a sudden, I feel like the character is there. Maybe not the sonics that we want for the studio, but the character, my friend, I feel like we finally achieved it. Let's listen to a couple very simple leaks comparing this one with the actual Mesa Boogie. Okay, let's hear. I feel like the two extremes would be the Mark III and the Mark IV, and somewhere in the middle, we have this guy. Which I feel is pretty good. So without fooling ourselves, let's mute this 2 microphone situation and let's just get to 1 microphone. Let's see what difference that makes. I feel like that lets me appreciate the tone a little bit better. Of course, it's not as loud, but I feel like it sounds a lot better already. I know, I should have done that in the beginning. But whatever, nobody's perfect, let's keep moving on. So now that I know that this sound is a little bit better, but I still want a little bit more of an open tone, and I know that I'm using this microphone, which is a Condenser 67, why don't we audition a couple microphones for your enjoyment?
Let's go.
Okay, for me, I feel like definitely the C12 was a clear winner. It sounded a lot more open, but it still had that super nice prevalent mid-range.
Let's keep going.
So there we go. I feel like we're really close. But let's do a few finishing touches, okay? So right here, go into our mixer. I know that in the studio, they were using some Neve kind of gear. And to get that kind of coloration, let's see what Neve gear we have here. Try to say that 5 times quick. All right, I know they have an 81 EQ right here. And according to my magical notes, the settings were +1, -2 clicks here, and then a low cut on 47. Let's hear how that sounds. With it off. I feel like that's getting way closer. You just like cleaned it up a little bit and now it's like easier to hear the tone. And let me tell you, that little low cut in the bass, it's really gonna help you stand out from the bass and the kick drum and all basically the low end of your mix. So maybe it's a good practice to do it almost in every tone that you do. And now that we know that this 1081 sounds killer, why would you not do it? Okay, the last step in this tone that I liked was using this saturator right here at the very end of my chain and choosing this tape 1 at -1 dBs just to kind of like compensate with the gain because this is going to add a little bit of volume to it. And I don't want to fool myself with just level. I want to make sure that I'm choosing the right tone. So let's hear this. So there you go. I feel like that is way closer to whatever we had earlier. Just a few moves to any of these parameters and you can make it even closer to what you think the Santana tone would be. But another thing that I wanted to do is just like a quick experiment, and I was just thinking, wow, this tone has a lot of gain. What happens if we turn the volume
all the way up?
Okay, so let's just stop cutting around and let's just get a few philosophical thoughts about this tone. There you go, my friend. That would be my approach to get a little bit of like a Santana kind of tone. And I feel like we definitely got very close. Of course, within the confinements of what I wanted to do, which was basically a simplified version of his tone, or maybe something that he would use on certain occasions, or just like his tech was saying, he's choosing every single amp for different parts of the songs and every single song, so you would never even know which amp he's using. And since it's actually Santana controlling it, it will always be a secret. But also, I don't want to be naive to the fact that I will never sound like Santana, because Santana knows exactly what he's doing. He's trying to talk with the guitar and express his soul. I am just right here trying to emulate the sound and in my own mind and in my own imagination, trying to feel what it would sound like to have that tone in a record. And I feel like if you were playing it with a backing track, you would be pretty happy with the results. But why don't you go try it in your own recordings and come back and let me know how it felt, remembering that this was nothing but a starting point so that you can have your own ears into it and make the tone that you really want and that you really need for the occasion that you might be in need of. Because remember, I don't know what you like, I don't know what you think the Santana tone is like, but that's the beauty of it. That we don't really need to focus that hard on getting somebody else's tone as much as we should be focusing on getting our own tone and express our own voice. But of course, I'm gonna be helping you along the way so that you can keep getting nice tones and creative tones that hopefully you like. And honestly, all your comments and your likes really help me to know what you guys want and what you guys like, so keep doing it. But for now, if you wanna go make a really nice lo-fi sound, go to this video right here. I'm gonna be waiting for you. Very cool sound, I'm telling you. You're not gonna wanna miss that one. Alright, my friend, thank you so much for being here again.